Chris. Welcome to the Funnel Vision podcast. Thrilled to have you on and share your expertise, tips, tricks, and advice with our community of sales professionals.
Thank you so much for having me, Alana. I'm really happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, first question. Tell us your secret. What's your go-to tactic that you swear by for building long-lasting client relationships and your ultimate secret weapon?
Probably not going to be earth-shattering, Alana, but I would say first you've got to really understand your client's needs and business at a deeper level, because we do a lot of things for a lot of clients, but every client has really, really unique needs and challenges, and you've got to go a little bit deeper to really understand their business and what makes them tick and how they operate. And then I'd say make sure that you are doing a great job of communicating every step of the way. When you're running into difficulty, be real proactive with your communication. Let them know if something gets off track or if they're off track with something that they're doing with you. So I'm a big believer in kind of open and honest dialogue, and make sure that, that you're keeping them informed on progress until your work is done, so that they can feel good that they're getting the most out of their relationship with you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of that. Clear communication throughout the entire process, even if things are great, great. If things are not great or could be improved on either side, like it's a must to have clear communication so you don't have anybody feeling any type of way about the situation, and that everybody just has clear objectives and knows where you're headed.
Yeah, and I realized just about 3 months ago, I was getting really busy with client work and it was hard to keep up with all that communication. And so I actually hired a part-time project manager to be a liaison with me to the client, to keep everything visible to the client, to build out some better intake and systems and visibility. And it's a game changer for me. Like what my project manager is doing for me, I couldn't do for myself. So I'm a big proponent. I think one of the big books that's out now is Buy Back Your Time, which is a really popular business book. I'm a real big proponent of, if there's somebody that can do something better than you at the right rate, and you can outsource that or give it to somebody and make the customer experience better in the process, then those are always good investments to make in your business. So that would be my unsolicited tip for your podcast.
Yeah. And I, again, 1000% agree with you. We actually just did the same and brought on a relationship manager. And again, game changer, like relationship manager, but also doing some project management, keeping the flow, making sure that all of the clients get the attention that they need. Super important. So I definitely
That's
agree
great.
there. What's the best piece of sales advice that you've received that shaped your philosophy, and who or where did it come from?
So I've always been really good in my sales career on, what I call the rational part of selling, understanding the need, understanding the benefit, understanding the numbers and the impact, and saying, hey, this is the ROI that we can give you in this equation, and really making sure that the owner understood what it was going to do for their business. What I wasn't always great at is the emotional aspect of the need. And so I was able to work with a couple of people, one in particular, Andy at Rain Group, and that's an international training platform that I use, and really kind of taught me to think differently about the balance between emotional needs and rational needs. And I've gotten much more in tune with what are the emotional needs of the buyer, what are the emotional needs of the business, what's the impact going to be, are they going to have their stress be reduced in the process? Are they going to be able to gain more confidence? Are they going to be able to gain, better teamwork? All of the internal things that don't have dollars attached to them. Those are really as big of a driver in the sales decision as the rational. If you think about like really big purchases that you've made in your life, especially here recently, it's as much emotional as it is rational in terms of the purchase that you made. You were kind of going on your gut, and then the rational justified it, but the emotional kind of comes first. So I learned a much better way to think about the balance between emotional needs and rational needs.
Yeah, that's something that's not often, I think, talked about as well. Like there really is that need where and it comes, they're not going to tell you. They'll
No.
tell you their rational needs. They'll tell you like we need this because of this, but the emotional is really what you need to listen and read between the lines, and they're not going to tell you that flat out. I mean, sometimes they will,
No.
but
No.
really like you have to listen and kind of see where the pain points are. And it's not always it's not the same for every client. They might be looking for the same product, but each client has a different, like you said, like emotional need for that person and for the company, for their department. Like there's, the different levels. And that comes from listening, and really kind of like reading between the lines sometimes.
Yeah, it really gets back to, your discovery process and your meeting process with those clients. And in the RAIN world, the emotional ties back to aspirations and afflictions is kind of how they teach it. And again, even within that emotional world, it's easy to talk about aspirations. Hey, what do you want to accomplish in your life? Or where are you going? Or what are you striving for? Because that's a real positive thing. It's really much more difficult to talk about afflictions, fear, and the things that people are worried about or afraid of, and things that are keeping people up at night, because those are uncomfortable conversations. But once you get those out on the table, then they're really going to want to solve for that, because they want to make that go away. It's a bigger motivator. The fear factor is a bigger motivator than the aspiration factor for people. It's like a 2-to-1 kind of thing, where people will buy more to eliminate something negative than they will to achieve something positive. And I'm working with a client now in a good size accounting firm, and we sort of, I'm helping to coach the team on how to unearth these things and how to listen, to your point, and get at all these things. And one of the partners has gotten really excited because he started to lean into afflictions, and he's getting all this great information back. And so we have dubbed him the king of afflictions, because he's mastered how to really capture afflictions the right way. And we kid him every time about, his embracing that, but it's really worked for him.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, but makes sense for sure. What's the best investment a salesperson can make?
So I'm a believer that salespeople need to invest in themselves. Like they can't rely, especially those that work in a mid-sized or small company, they can't rely on the company to do all the investing in their career. They've got to invest in themselves. And it can be something as simple as a really good podcast or a book or a mastermind, those kind of things. But I also think that they need to do their own investing in technology, especially with AI and all the technology changes. Most businesses aren't going to be able to deliver all of that to a salesperson, but yet the best salespeople are getting ahead of the technology, and they're being able to use some of the really great technology out there to save themselves time, so that they can spend more time doing the things that they really love to do, and not all of the minutia that a lot of these tools can eliminate for them. So I think it's a matter of either investing directly in the technology, or going to their network and figuring out who has figured out the right technology to use, and leveraging their own mastermind group for, oh, you're doing that at your company, I need to invest in that, I need to get involved in that. Because if you can find things that can save, 10, 20, 30% of your time, that's a game changer for a salesperson. So they really, at the end of the day, whether they're company is doing it or whether they're doing it for themselves, they need to invest in technology and new AI applications in sales.
Yeah, and I feel like that doesn't have to be necessarily a monetary investment. That could be an investment in time, investment in learning, investment in opening up their network to having the right people in their network, or even their right listening to the right podcast, reading the right books, and things like that. So it's not necessarily investment only in here's my money. It's more of
Right.
like time
It's
and
it's a
learning.
time. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. What is something a salesperson should stop doing immediately?
I coach salespeople to stop doing a combination of kicking the can down the road on a bad sales deal, and I tell them to stop trying to get through the proposal process with a client that should have been disqualified. There are many, many times where after the proposal's done and you lose the deal and you go to that salesperson and say, well, why did you lose the deal? And they say, well, we found out after we did the proposal that they really couldn't afford our solution. I'm like, well, you really want to know that before the proposal process, because they're really disqualified at that point. If they can't afford your solution and you don't have a cheaper solution, they are disqualified. Yet I think salespeople like to really pump that pipeline up, and they want to show the activity and show the dollars. But ultimately, there's just a ton of wasted time and effort in not properly qualifying deals. So I would tell them to stop moving forward with deals that are clearly disqualified. But it goes back to, does the company really have a good sales process? Because a lot of times the reason they're not properly disqualifying deals is because they don't have the right process. So they're just going and they're really not following any methodology to really stop at a certain point and go or no go. And so they're making their own judgment, and it just depends on what day of the week or how they're feeling about their quota or whatever. And it just ends up being this inconsistent piece that ties back to a lack of a process. But ultimately, there's just a ton of wasted time. And I've gotten people excited about, that I've been coaching here recently about disqualifying deals faster. Like, that's invigorating. They're like, this is out of my pipeline now. I don't have to worry about this anymore. My boss isn't going to ask me about this deal every week. That in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, I don't really think it's going to close, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep trying. And it just takes your eye off of the really great deals and the really qualified deals that you should be spending double the time on, and not be spread out over all these deals that aren't going to close. I'm sure you have that in your business. I have that in my business, where, we could probably disqualify some of these deals a lot faster.
Yeah, and really take that time to be intentional and be focused on the things that are going to be good deals. Because also, to the same, fact that your point is, not all deals are good deals. Like, even if you get them through and get them through the proposal and everything else, that doesn't mean it's good business for you or for the company. So it's, salespeople do try often to push it through because they want to seem productive, but giving people the permission to not, to not move forward with it.
And celebrate it. You should celebrate it. Like, I tell salespeople, if you come to me and you disqualify a deal early, we're going to celebrate that, because you got them out of your pipeline. You executed the process. You saved all of us time and trouble. And now you can focus on the bigger and better things. And the only other thing I'll add to that is, part of the reason why the qualification process doesn't go well is that there's no real documentation and understanding of who truly is the ideal client profile. Like, do you have the right ICP is the acronym for that? Do you really all agree, you and the salesperson and everybody else in the organization, on what a really great customer or client is and what a not great customer or client is? Because that causes a lot of confusion too, where people are bringing in customers or clients in the pipeline that are not ideal. Forget about not qualified. They're just not ideal to work with, period. And it's not the salesperson's fault if that hasn't been vetted internally with the company. That is either the owner or the sales leader, whoever's wearing that hat in the company. It's really their responsibility to clarify that for the salesperson. You don't want to leave that up to your salespeople to judge what is ideal and what is not ideal. You want to have that documented and clarified up front.
Right. And that comes from working either internally or working with, someone like yourself as a consultant to formulate a playbook and understand the strategy. Because I agree with that so much. It's not up to the salesperson to define that. That should be defined at the, leadership level, whether you said, like, it's the founder, the owner, the sales leader, whoever that is in charge of sales, has to have a well-defined strategy before before you're able to bring in the right people. And, it's not up to the salesperson to define that.
Spot on. Yeah. And you nailed it with playbook. So, every company should have a really good sales playbook. And that's part that ICP, and sales process is part of it. But if a company doesn't have that sales playbook, they're just going to be inconsistent, and they're going to have trouble scaling as they bring on new salespeople and they're trying to grow. It's going to be really difficult for them to do it without a playbook. So I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one piece of advice that you'd wish you'd known earlier in your career, and how can an aspiring salesperson apply it today?
The one piece of advice that I wish I'd known earlier is you can't over prepare for a good discovery meeting. You really can't. You can't do enough research and enough preparation to make sure, because typically in a discovery meeting, for most people that have that in their sales process, and I think most of the people in the audience are doing some sort of discovery before they do a proposal. I hope so. If not, that's a whole different issue. But you know, the only way to deliver a really great proposal is to have a really good discovery meeting. So I wish somebody would have told me to prepare more, and then to be able to do a better job of doing a needs discovery and really going deeper. If you've got an hour, you've got to be really, really on the mark in terms of the questions that you're going to ask, the information that you need to gather, and the understanding with the prospect you need to have before you move forward to the proposal. So I'd say, you know, if you look back on all the deals that you lose or all the clients that you lose over time, you can almost always point back to discovery and say, that's where we went wrong. We weren't ready. We didn't ask the right questions. We didn't have the right people in the room on our side or their side. And therefore it wasn't a productive meeting. They got the proposal. They didn't like the proposal, and they went with another solution. And the other solution that they went with, and the proposal that they went with, that team did a better job at discovery than you did. Generally speaking, unless it's an incumbent, they did a better job. So my advice would be, slow down, get better prepared for discovery, and nail discovery so that when you deliver the proposal, it's exactly what they expected and they're ready to move forward at that point. You've almost pre-sold it by how good of a job you did in discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Being prepared, researching, and also kind of brings it back to, you know, reading between the lines. And too, is it's not always what they're saying, but like understanding the motivations and what the needs are beyond what they're saying and what they're just putting out on the table. So I absolutely agree. So Chris, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where can people find you?
So, again, I'm Chris Cocca. My company is Strategic Sales. I've had a consulting business for over 7 years, and I've been a sales leader for over 25 years now, a lot of time with PepsiCo and other big companies. But I love working with small and mid-size companies, especially professional services companies. Some of the things that we talked about in our conversation are under the umbrella of something I call Evergrowth. So I've built a really comprehensive Evergrowth process for companies. And the easiest way to find me is I'm the only Chris Cocca that I know of on LinkedIn. So ChrisCocca. You could send me a LinkedIn connection request or a message. And I'm happy, you know, to give out my phone number. If anybody wants to call me directly, they can call me on my cell at 918-409-9559. So either call me, text me, or send me a LinkedIn message, and I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. Even if I can't help you directly, I take pride in having a really broad network of people that love to help. And if I can't help you, I surely will know somebody that will.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time and all of the fantastic advice you've shared. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.